The Selectmen regular meeting for December 18th, 2023. And let's start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I know we have our first sign-up sheet tonight for our new rules of procedure for public audience. I do have a statement I'd like to read before we start public audience. And as everyone knows, at our last meeting, we approved the rules of procedure for the Board of Selectmen. And in the rules of procedure, we included a decorum and standards of conduct statement. So I just have a couple things I'd like to start with here. This is just, I wanna just quote a resident. As the newly elected Board of Selectmen enters another chapter as the legislative body of the town, I'm looking forward to a board with good judgment, fairness toward the public, and a genuine interest in serving the taxpayers of Simsbury. The board should be respectful towards the public concerns that are brought before them and should treat each person with respect, whether you agree or disagree with their content. And that was what Joan said to open our meeting. I wanna just open by saying we're trying to have our meetings to be places that the public is comfortable coming to share their views with us, and that we are here with an open mind and wanna do what's best for the community and our staff. I also wanna say I've talked to Attorney Bob DiCrescenzo that if people come to the meeting and have concerns about staff or department heads, those people report to the town manager. They do not report to the Board of Selectmen. So issues in that regard should be addressed to the town manager and may be included to and CC the Board of Selectmen in an email, but unless if you can address those concerns directly with the town manager and the concerns are not relieved, then you can bring them to the board. And if you're looking at me like that, that is a statement that I received from our town attorney. You're welcome to discuss issues with the town manager, who does report about the town manager, if you have complaints about our town manager, who does report to the board, but please follow the decorum standards. The other thing is, you know, we support the decorum standards, say we support the right of the resident to criticize their local government, so we are open for criticism. We urge that the comments addressed to the board be appropriate, responsible, with civility and discretion. And we're not trying to deprive anyone of their freedom to discuss, but we're just looking for a safe, productive, and harassment-free workplace for our town staff and visitors. And you should address the board in a civil tone and not impugn the motive, character, integrity of the individual, and we do reserve the right to curtail any speaker. Now, this is the first time that we're implementing this, Joan, and you're the only public audience here today, so we're hoping that we don't have to stop any of
I
this
have a
speaking.
prepared statement, so I'm not changing the way I do things. And if you're taking away my constitutional rights, so be it.
Okay.
But I'm doing what I'm doing, so that's it.
Well, if you're going to, we'll let you speak here, and I think we have a rebuttal here if we need be, but going forward, if it's an inappropriate way to address town staff, we'd like you to take it up with the town manager. And you can include the Board of Selectmen so that we know that there's an issue, and if the issue is not addressed, then we're happy to hear it here.
You want me to speak?
Sure.
Thank you. Joan Code 26 Whitcomb Drive. The last Charter Revision Commission was convened in 2016. There were many changes viewed. There are many committees, boards, and commissions that are redundant in their mission statements and require staff to support services that should be eliminated. The stipend for first selectmen is inconsistent with other towns that have mayor council forms of government without any stipends to their elected officials. In West Hartford, the mayor is chosen from the elected council members of their first organizational meeting, where they choose the mayor and others for positions required to set policy for the town. Their form of government has served the town well over the years and should be reviewed by our Charter Revision Commission. The Board of Education policy of placing candidates that will automatically win with no choice appears to have the policy board in lockstep with the administration. We should have diverse views and independent voices on the Board of Education and set policy that would challenge the status quo, all in the interest of student performance. The Police Commission is appointed to serve the town. Mike Long has served as commissioner for decades and has politicized the position. It is alleged that under Mike Long's guidance, public audience was removed from the police commission agenda that was included for decades. Many of the policies have been bifurcated with an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between past town manager and police commission should be reviewed. Term limits should be reviewed to encourage public participation. The police department is in need of standalone building as the population grows and additional services are needed. Over the years, they have issues with mold and flooding. There is a need to have additional space for storage for many of the software devices, reports, evidence rooms, and many support services needed to function as a professional organization. The police staff has looked at 507 Hop Meadow Street. The Old South School is a viable building that is now in private ownership. There are several town-owned land parcels that are vacant, and there are large land parcels owned by the tobacco company that should be reviewed. In order to lower costs, the town could swap the land and buildings with the private sector or have land donated to the town. I would like to report that Chief Bolter continues to limit my access to the records room and has continued with babysitting service that is a childish display of his authoritarian rule of the police department. As a result, Chief Bolter's nonsensical edicts I have used the Freedom of Information request for my inquiries that are time-consuming. Chief Bolter's management style is not only a reflection of his failure to admit that his decision to institute a babysitting service is nonsensical, but this is an indication of his inability to admit mistakes that is incorporated into his management of the police department. Chief Bolter does not trust anyone to make decisions and refuses to listen to anyone and never admits when he is wrong. Chief Bolter has edited the consultant report on scheduling with many drafts because he wasn't satisfied with the original document. Chief Bolter has single-handedly destroyed the morale of the police department.
Excuse me,
Chief
Joan, I'm
Bolter is
gonna
eligible
stop
for
you for a
retirement in
minute.
2024 with full benefits and should retire, having the department with a deputy chief that would be an asset not only to the police department but to the community. Promoting Deputy Chief Davis to chief would change the management style to an open, knowledgeable, and caring department. When developing a budget for 2024, the Selectmen and the Board of Education should be required to implement a zero-based budget. Every bucket should be scrutinized as to a cost-benefit analysis. All staff should be scrutinized as to value added for their services. There should be a list of administrators to determine their direct or indirect value to the management of the town, Board of Education, Police Department. Should some of these services be eliminated or consolidated? The budget should reflect that we are living in an inflationary environment with talks of recession, businesses downsizing, banks are stressed, leading to challenges when developing a budget. The volunteer ambulance service should not be supported with tax dollars. There are software programs that can track all activities of delivery of services, track insurance claims and collections. AMR, private ambulance service, contracted with Avon and Farmington, is not supported with tax dollars. The taxpayers cannot support a budget that incorporates discretionary services that could be eliminated. All of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch and Twitter at Joan Co. Thank you for listening.
Okay, so I think we'll have to work on the rules of decorum because we are allowed to stop people from speaking and to actually ask them to be removed. And it is a right of the board and it is a decorum statement that is allowed of the chair and is at the advice of legal counsel. So thank you. We have Chief Bolter, did you wanna say something here to rebut that?
Sure. Thank you and welcome to the new board.
Thank you.
The Police Department Records Division serves many purposes for the department, the town government, and the community. The division collects and provides data and statistics for the department, state, and federal agencies. The Records Division is most commonly known for housing and distributing public records. Pursuant to Connecticut law, all records maintained or kept on file shall be public records, and every person shall have the right to inspect, copy, or receive a copy of a public record. The law does not require a verbal synopsis, a verbal summation, a verbal opinion, a verbal conjecture from an employee. It requires the release of a public record. Our records division consists of very bright and dedicated employees. They have access to very personal and sensitive information, and they are trusted with it. They do a tremendous job. They are not trained to discuss open or closed cases or investigations. That's not their job. I will not put them in a position where their professional integrity could be challenged. They are professionals and do not provide gossip or backstories to be exploited. Records personnel will process all requests for public records as promptly as possible for anybody. If someone wishes to discuss an investigation, then the officer of record, a supervisor, or any member of the command staff can assist. And I'd be happy to discuss our records at any time in the future with any of you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're gonna move on to the first selectmen's report. I just wanna say, hope everyone was safe after today's storm. I know there was a lot of trees down, road closures. It looks like the river's starting to crest. And we wanna thank the EMS team that's out there. That includes our fire, police, and public works. Everybody did their best, and to be careful driving around town. I want to acknowledge that the town of Simsbury received a state bond commission award of $900,000, which was a first in a long time for the town, so it's really a big deal. And this money is towards the Performing Arts Center second act, which is the backstage area, and it's something that's been on the list for the town for a long time, and it will include bathrooms that we've been talking about for a while that will be available to the public along the trail for the playground and the playing fields. Our state rep Melissa Osborne submitted an application along with State Senator Lisa Seminara. Last year, I believe it was early last year, members of the town leadership, the PAC board, and elected officials provided input to this application, and we showed the importance of the project to our local arts, culture, and economic development in town, and as I said, it's a big deal. I just wanna acknowledge the Simsbury Public Library had an incident last week with some inappropriate signage displayed at the library that was political in reference to the Middle East conflict, and it included language that was upsetting and harmful to many. The library is well aware, as is the town manager, and the library board is probably meeting, I think they're meeting tonight, and they're discussing it tonight, and they're well aware of the issue that was happened, and they're looking to most likely put in some policy in place so that doesn't happen again. But they send their apologies and we apologize too. Saturday was Wreaths Across America Day. It was the annual event that's been happening every year up on the Plank Hill at Simsbury Cemetery. All branches of the military were honored with both elected officials and clergy speaking, and members of the Abigail Phelps chapter who organizes this event every year. And I just want to thank them for inviting me to speak and with the elected officials that were there on Saturday.
I don't know if you had it on.
I
It was
did.
gonna go off.
It was for John.
Sorry, looking off.
I was trying to turn it off before, thank you. The tri-board meeting or the bi-board meeting, tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, we have a meeting with the SVAA to discuss their financial situation, the second ambulance, status needs. Oh, you were right, it was on, sorry. Get rid of this thing. And then after that, that's at 5, and at 6 o'clock, we're doing our annual tri-board meeting, which is the Board of Ed, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and we're all getting together to have a first look and discussion on the budget for 24-25. So that's always a fun night. The public is invited. I don't think there's public audience at the meetings, but I'm not sure. Because it is a Board of Finance meeting and ours is a special meeting, so we don't have public audience. And we'll have our Board of Finance director there, the budget director, members of town leadership. So that's that, still going here, just a couple more things. I also wanna comment, we've seen a lot of comments out in the public on the Route 189 Mountain Ave intersection at the bottom of Elm Street. We are aware of those concerns. Tom Roy's group knows about it. They're working with the state of Connecticut because it is a state road. And trying to figure out what to do down there to make it safer, because that's where the bike crossing is. I don't need to mention the CRAG study. There's an email that's out there, I have the link in here. And I want to just acknowledge the Simsbury Farms Playground opening that happened on December 6th. The whole Board of Selectmen was there playing around on the slides for hot chocolate and cookies. And we wanna thank the Parks and Rec Commission, the Friends of Simsbury Library, the Board of Selectmen, and town staff who all were there for that event. That is my first Selectmen's report, and I will turn it over to the town manager.
Thank you, Wendy. I just have a couple of brief comments. From Culture Parks and Recreation, the Holiday Skate and Share event will be at the Simsbury Farms Rink this Friday, the 22nd of December from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. This fun event features free skating admission with a donation of non-perishable food items to the Simsbury Food Closet. Free hot chocolate and cookies will be available. Santa Claus will be there for last-minute visits. There'll be a special reading of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, holiday music, and frozen turkey bowling.
Ooh.
And you can get updates at simsburyrec.com or follow the Simsbury Rec Department's Facebook page. There'll be a special school vacation public skating schedule at the Simsbury Farms Ice Rink. And again, you can visit simsburyrec.com to get information on the schedule. From our Public Works Department, I think I have 2 items. There were a few roads blocked by trees and wires today from the storm. Eversource response has been reasonable, according to our Public Works Director. And they are going to begin restoration once the winds died down early this afternoon. So hopefully restoration is in the works. Public Works anticipates several roads being closed tonight due to the rising waters in the Farmington River. Those roads include Nod Road, Terry's Plain, Route 15, and Riverside Road, both north and south. And Public Works and Police caution, do not drive around barriers, please. And then finally from the library, Director Michelli sent me a very nice email that was sent to her that I'd like to read if I may. It's from Dr. Glenn Knight, who's the Assistant Director of Continuing Studies at Wesleyan University. And he writes as follows. I am writing to thank the professional staff at the Simsbury Public Library for going above and beyond to support residents during the internet outage today. All the library staff that I encountered were professional, kind, and did everything they could to improve a difficult situation for working adults. I walked around the library and heard people from diverse professions quietly holding urgent conference calls wherever they could. Each one of them likely began their day asking about reserving a conference room. I personally used a conference room in the morning for an important call, then I spent the afternoon out at a table in the middle of the adult services area. I don't know if the library is considered part of Simsbury's emergency plan, but it should be. I wish there was a way to report on how many small businesses, universities, and corporations were supported by the Simsbury Public Library today. The staff in the library building kept everyone working and kept everyone safe. Without it, everyone would have been forced to drive to work in the storm. And concerning restoration of internet service, Comcast is telling folks 8 p.m. tomorrow night. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. So the next part of the agenda is the Selectmen liaison and subcommittee reports. This would be everyone's first time potentially having gone to their liaison or subcommittee. So I'm gonna start with Kevin. Gonna start down that end. Kevin.
Sure, thank you. I attended a couple of my subcommittee liaison appointments. Specifically, and I know that the members of the board received a message from Mark Scully on the Sustainability Committee. Their concern, of course, is interoperability among government functions and supporting a rule that would bridge that gap for sustainability concerns, both for the physical plant and our buildings and just advocating for the sustainability concerns overall. I'm sure that will be a subject of discussion for us during the budget cycle. That's all for me.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Diane?
So I attended several meetings. I will start with Board of Ed as a subcommittee. So there's gonna be a special education task force that's meeting again in January. They reviewed some new curriculum that has been implemented in a trial basis for K through 5 reading. And the requirements have changed for the state and it is a mandate. And Simsbury Public Schools received a waiver for this because there was one piece of it that we need to implement. So we did receive a mandate, which was huge because not everybody who applied for the mandate received the waiver received it. Junior and senior capstones are being done now for winter. They elected their new chair, vice chair and secretary, so we can recognize Jeff Tyndall as chair, Jennifer Batchelder as vice chair, and Sharon Thomas as secretary. They are projecting enrollment increase about 2% per year, about 10% over the next 5 years. And they also had a new math curriculum presentation. Then I attended Parks and Recs, and they went over the past year over the golf course and gave a presentation of basically what the golf course went through, what their numbers looked like. The irrigation project was on target and went well. They have a 10-year OSHA inspection. There's a few things to address, but the next things on their agenda is the car path and drainage projects, which are up next. There are parts that are still delayed that are needed for some of the equipment, and it's been a struggle. But overall, they had a really great year. Weather was the biggest impactor of golf services this year, but they found creative ways to still come above board on Parks and Rec. So they were very happy with that. I will leave public safety to Heather. I also attended the Youth Services Advisory Board. They welcomed the new Henry James SRO, Mike Lantieri, and they're very excited about that. The police and the cadets both enjoyed being at Simsbury Celebrates, and they enjoyed it very much. Social Services has 50 holidays 50 families that they are supporting for the holidays this year, and they're also working on energy assistance. But there was a student, the student report reported that they are looking to have more support for seniors during the college application process. And they're not feeling very supported and are looking for some support even with some financial aid on the costs that are incurred for applications. And then, did I attend anything else? I know I attended a lot of meetings, sorry. Well, lastly, the Aging and Disability Commission, we had our Sensory Santa event, which served 56 different attendees, and it was a great time.
Thank you.
All I had was Simsbury Main Street. There were 2 board members that resigned. One moved out of town and one is me, which was a conflict of interest. They discussed the 2 new board members, but it's probably inappropriate for me to announce them before they announce them themselves. They reviewed their financial aspects and talked about some grant writing, and that was about it for that one meeting.
Okay, thanks. I'm just gonna give a quick personnel update. So we had our first meeting of the new personnel subcommittee this morning. We reviewed the RFP that was requested and voted on at our last meeting for the Labor Council. The outcome of that is that we just asked to have Mark Nelson review it before it goes out, as he will be the town manager when that gets implemented. And that and then we also confirmed GovHR as the firm for the comp and classification study. Tom Fitzgerald's gonna be sending out the contract, I believe, this week. It was a pretty unanimous decision. We felt that they were good. We had just worked with them hiring Mark. And the personnel subcommittee will be involved in some respect and get updates along the way. And then the finance subcommittee, right now, we have not met for a while. We hope to meet in 2024 with the new team. Let's get through the end of the year and get the budget kicked off. And then we'll meet with Amy and try to figure out some goals for that team. That's all I have.
Okay, so I have I attended the retirement committee. We received an update there on our investments, our year-to-date investment return. We are on target, and it was just a good presentation on where we're at. Like I said, we're on target, and they may be looking in February kind of to reallocate our ratios on equity versus fixed income allocations. But that being said, we are in healthy shape. And then the public safety meeting. We have the ambulance is doing a collection for dogs and pets from December 15th going through January 15th. They also have an EMT class that's beginning January 9th, and there's space available in that. We also have Public Works. They have been putting out wooden stakes. If people have seen them, they are going to be a reference point for our snow plows. They also recommend that mailboxes be placed 9 inches back. Also, they have been implementing some new crosswalk safety, especially around the schools. They'll be putting signs on both sides of the crosswalk with some reflectors. So they'll be working on that. Social Services is looking to refill their pantry. They'd like it restocked by January 9th, and they will be posting a new list of needs, and that will be out, I believe, sometime this week. But they said that you can reference the list that's there to make donations now. They also referenced energy assistance, and if you need the Eversource discount for certain households, that you can find that information through their website. And their recent cheese day, they served just under 100 households. And I also have fire. The fire department has been putting identification signs on the ridge so that if someone's lost, they have a reference location. So that'll be helpful for safety issues. And I believe that's all I have for that.
Thank you.
Most of mine actually either met the night that we were elected or juvenile review board, there was no cases, we were supposed to meet today, but there was no cases, so we didn't meet today.
Okay.
And then we have our zoning later today.
Oh, yeah, okay, thank you. Yep, you're not, no one's under pressure to report you. This is the most I think we've ever had reported in a while, so
Set the standard.
it's pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to, we have our first consent agenda. And before we get into the consent agenda items, you are allowed to ask to have items removed from the consent agenda for discussion without needing a vote. And I would like to take items C, D, and E out of the consent agenda because there's items and things on there that I'd like to discuss, if anybody wants to weigh in on those. So the question I have for you, Tom, is if I pull those out, do we just add them to the selectmen action? So there'd be like B, C, and D in selectmen action? B, C,
and D.
Okie dokie. Does anybody else wanna pull any of the remaining two out of the consent agenda? Okay, so our first consent agenda, I'm looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda that includes the tax refund requests and also includes a donation to the police department from Ron Perry for $5,000.
So move with thanks.
Second.
I think Steve got you,
No.
Heather, and Steve, you can get the next one. No discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So now we're moving to we're going to the revisions to the adult library, because that's the next one. Okay, so we just discussed this morning in personnel subcommittee. This is the item under selectmen action because now we just moved all the consent agenda items below it, a little out of order. And this is a proposed change to the part-time adult services librarian position. And what they're trying to change is to make it a little easier for them to hire people. They've had trouble hiring people. Like Lisa's here, she came this morning, so I'm basically repeating what she has to say. Do you wanna weigh in on this, Tom, or do you want me to do you wanna give the context on this?
If you'd like, so they've had, so this is a part-time unaffiliated librarian at the library. It is it's been out for recruitment a few times and has failed based on applicant pool size and quality as well of what they're looking for. So Lisa has come up with this, working with Eric Gomes in HR, to come up with the small revision that you have in your packet, the blue sentence added, allowing us to have either someone with their MLIS degree, their master's degree in library information sciences, I think. Or someone that is currently enrolled in that program in their last year of the program. And this morning Lisa clarified that it is a 2-year program, so they would have had 1 year in the program and then they'd be in their last year. We put in the job description that they would have to be able to get their degree within 1 year of date of hire. And then, so that's the approval for you guys. Administratively, we also mentioned that we've come into some challenges with the 4 hours being the minimum for the position. Again, it's part-time, so 4-hour minimum is what we used to have. So we will look to kind of advertise as an 8-hour minimum, hoping that that attracts more people without going over budget. So that will not be impacted. I would like to clarify that. So, and we also won't have, if someone is currently a 4-hour minimum and they can only do 4-hour minimum, we're not gonna get rid of that current employee working. I believe Lisa this morning said that there's 4 of these positions with 2 of them open. And so these are the ones that staff the, I believe she said the reference desk, so these are important customer facing positions. So we think that increasing the hours and also allowing person that's a student right now would get us a bigger applicant pool to staff this position.
So Heather, Steve and I already had a chance to talk about this. If anybody has any questions or concerns or comments on.
I just had one, and that you sort of alluded to it, Tom, but I didn't hear the other part. It said that no financial impact, but it's increasing from 4 to 8. Could you touch on that again? Sorry.
So how Lisa explained it is they basically just have a pool of hours for this position for the year that's in the budget. So basically they would just take that pool of hours and then divvy it up in 8-hour blocks instead of 4 to 16-hour blocks. They'd go 8 to 16 hours.
That was my same question.
Good question.
So it's the same number of hours, it just may be divided up in 8-hour blocks or 4-hour blocks or 6-hour blocks depending on.
Yeah, or instead of having, say, 6 people that fill it for the year, we might have 5, and then that would just kind of allow more hours for the current people.
Good question. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion effective December 18th, 2023 to approve the updated job description for the part-time adult services librarian as presented.
I'll move to approve the updated job description for the adult services library as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. So now we're getting into the non-consent agenda items. The first one is the acceptance and appropriation of funds for the Connecticut office of the Secretary of the State grant. This is a new grant that we're getting, which is why I asked to pull it out from the Secretary of the State to support the new 25 days of early voting that is happening in the state of Connecticut. And we're getting a grant award of $10,500. It's been signed by Susan Salina and Karen Cortez and Lee Erdman. It has a lot of stipulations here, but the fact that it's a new grant coming in to support a new initiative, I felt we should just bring it up here. And I'd like to ask if anyone on the board has comments or questions. Heather.
I do, I have some questions. What is the total cost for us, for the town for early voting? And is this a grant that we can apply for annually? Does the cost for early voting change based on if it's a municipal election versus a?
I do not have the total cost. This is the first time this is required to allow the 25 days of early voting. It was not a grant that we applied for. It's given to every community to help offset the cost. I can certainly find out, get an estimate of the total cost, but I suspect it'll be considerably more than $10,500.
Just a comment, I would assume that Karen and Susan will include that in their budget this year, or for next year at least, projections?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So I had an opportunity to talk with Susan in particular about this, and I know that Karen has raised her concerns as well.
Yep.
One of the lines in the budget is up over like 500-something% to address this issue. So this is a drop in the bucket. It's something that the state is mandating on us.
Mhm.
One of the concerns that I have that's outside maybe the purview of this vote, but it doesn't necessarily increase voter access for us. We always have the ability to vote in person right across the hall here, but does require additional staffing
So we'll have to be aware of that for the registrar of voters and both volunteers and the registrars to be able to provide the support that the state is mandating us without the funding required. I'm also concerned that while we're able to accept this money this year, we need to plan for the very likely scenario that we won't get any additional funding in future years. And so this is allowing us to spread that out a little bit and a little bit of a handout, but I don't think that it will help the voters next year when we have to budget for a pretty significant increase in costs. Most voters are aware of the November elections because that's when the most of our voters turn out, but there's also the presidential preference primaries and our municipal budget referenda and a whole bunch of other requirements that will also require some additional staffing. So I have very concerns about what's happening to us with this, but I do encourage us to vote to accept the money that's been given to us.
Agreed. And when you mean voting across the hall, are you referring to absentee ballots?
Voters were always able to vote absentee in person by going to the
Right.
town clerk's office and requesting an absentee ballot package and voting it and returning it either to the ballot box or right back to the town clerk. So this doesn't necessarily increase access to voting, but it does increase the mandate and requirement for us to staff during those hours.
Agreed. The one thing I will comment I'll make on the absentee ballot, obviously there are some conditions that are required, even though they explain that sickness can mean fear of sickness. So I believe that they're going to address absentee ballots, no excuse absentee ballots coming up in either this year or next year
Sure,
too. And that would make that a lot easier, obviously.
Sure.
Okay, anyone else?
I do have a question. So
Sure.
when I read it, it didn't seem as though anything's actually changing. It's just more of they're providing funds to help with voting. So there's no requirements to change any of our current absentee ballot rules.
So, yeah, so this is really, we're going to have to set up a whole process for in-person early voting, which we don't have yet today. So not just the absentee ballots, which are fairly simple to do. They're gonna have to have the voting machines and have staff to be open 25 days for elections. My question was, and I wasn't sure, is at one point they were talking about not doing it for primaries or for referendums. Are those now all inclusive? Do we know the answer to that?
I do not know.
I guess I can ask Karen that question.
Yeah, I can follow up on that as well.
But I know at one point they were talking about not every vote was gonna be a 25-day, for a referendum or for a primary. I'm not sure what the answer is there. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to ask for a motion effective December 18th, 2023 to accept the grant funds from the Office of the Secretary of the State to support early voting and to authorize interim town manager Lee Erdman to execute all documents related to the grant award and further move to appropriate the grant funds if awarded and recommend said appropriation to the Board of Finance.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I'll just add that it's only being used to address the staffing is what our request is, so none of the other requirements to institute the early voting. So that's what our registrars are planning to use it for right now, and they plan to use it up by the primary. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the proposed appointments and reappointments to various boards and commissions. So I wanted to address this because I had questions on it, so I figured I would bring it up in public. So there's a lot of positions in here that are being filled that were elected positions that were not filled at the municipal election. So if you read the body of this, they're filling vacancies from the election, and due to the charter, most of the positions, if they're a 4-year, they have to end at the next municipal election, as opposed to filling out the full term, because that's what the charter says. So you are allowed to appoint people to these elected positions because there was no one that ran for these positions, and these positions were all positions to be filled by the Republican Party. So there's, the Democratic Party already had as many people as they could have, I think, for these positions. So that was the one thing I wanted to point out. The other thing I just wanted to point out is I'm gonna just go through the motions here because there's people being appointed to boards that were elected, so I think their names should be out in public so people are aware of who they are. I would like to move effective December 18th, 2023 to reappoint all the reappointments in the first half as written in the document, if that's okay, and not read those reappointments.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those all happen. And then move effective December 18th to appoint Scott Barnett, this is actually not elected, but Scott Barnett as an alternate member of the Board of Assessment Appeals with a term ending December 1st, 2025. Ann Erickson as a regular member of the Library Board of Trustees with a term ending December 1st, 2025. Colleen Yates as a regular member of the Library Board of Trustees with a term ending December 1st, 2025. Julie Eaton as a regular member of the Planning Commission with a term ending December 1st, 2025. Angel Goldman as an alternate member of the Planning Commission until December 1st, 2025. Jackie Bados as an alternate member of the Zoning Commission until December 1st, 2025. And Stacy Walzak as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals until December 1st, 2025. A motion for that?
So moved.
Would I get a second on that?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I'll just say that I really appreciate the willingness of so many people to serve our town, whether Republican or Democrat.
Thank you.
I'll add that I'm glad to see so many of these names who were on other places in the ballot
Right,
filling these positions that are needed.
okay, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was 6 yeses, no nays. And now the last item is the minutes. And I had a correction to the minutes and I'm gonna go with, I think some other people might have had some corrections to the minutes.
So why don't I move to approve the minutes and then we can discuss the amendments that you wanna make?
Sure,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
okay, open for discussion.
I know.
Okay, so under item F, the reappointment of the town council, labor, employment, pension council, and board council. It did not include the vote. Mr. Beal made a motion effective December 4th to reappoint the firm of Updike Kelly. Oh, that's the correct one. Yes, it was missing the vote on Ford Harrison. The first vote that we took, which was a 2 vote to 4 fail. And that was at about minutes of 56-58, because I went back to watch it. So I wanted to make sure that's included in the minutes. Did you have a change to the minutes?
I have a few changes.
Okay,
Under personnel, there was under Wendy's update, it said she and some town staff will review the compensation study, but they were actually reviewing the RFPs for the compensation study. And when we discussed making changes to if we brought an agenda item and it said that we were only allowed to vote on it if it was an emergency action, it says in the minutes, Ms. Maxudis said this could be changed to, quote, except for an emergency action will not be taken, and it was not changed to that. We amended so that we could vote on an added agenda item.
yeah, we took out that, we scratched that. You
Yes.
asked to have that scratched, that's what it should say.
Yep.
Okay, any other changes to the minutes? Okay, so we have a motion and
About the community for care.
oh,
Was that in
yes,
the
yeah,
items?
that was in there. Where?
I had it.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to, where is that though? Community for care, I'm trying to find it. Oh, reauthorization of committees, item G. I thought it should say, it says there was discussion on community for care not having quorums at their meetings and a lot of their issues fall on social services. I believe it should say it was decided to not renew that commission.
Yeah.
Correct. And then I just had one other, cause I had thought the same thing about community care, but also under the stipend for first selectmen, we did I guess it was not part of the motion, but we did discuss that it would be relooked at potentially. And we could
At budget
increase it
time.
at that time
Yep.
during the budget process.
Didn't you say that I could just bill everything I want to the town for?
Legitimate
Not say
expense.
that. That's for selectmen.
Okay,
No.
so
However, there was statements in there about reimbursement to
Yes.
the first selectman and as well as other board of selectmen for
Yes.
costs incurred outside of the stipend.
Correct.
Yeah, we don't need that in the minutes, but we all know that now.
Yes.
Okay, so all those in favor, since we have a motion and a second, all those in favor, say aye.
We need to amend.
As amended, right?
As amended.
Oh, as amended. Oh, yes, as amended, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 6, so that passes. Okay, so now I'm going to ask for a motion to move into executive session with the town manager, Attorney DeCrescenzo,
Let's invite Tom as well,
and
since
invite Deputy Town Manager
Yeah.
Tom
you may have
Fitzgerald.
to follow up on some of these things.
Okay,
Yeah.
so can I have a
I
motion?
move that we enter into executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.